like to thank our witnesses for joining us today. Today's hearing is titled CCP Strategy to Shape the Global Information Space. I would argue that this is very much like what we term in the military, and that is shaping the battle space. I would argue that this is the information battle space. China, the CCP, is all about shaping how, potentially, they can gain an advantage within that area. Ms. Wang, would you say that China is indeed trying to shape this information battle space to their own advantage?
Absolutely.
And in doing that, they are using various social media platforms. You heard very eloquently about what they're doing with TikTok, but using other ways of shaping information to be able to influence the United States, be able to influence people within the United States, to create sympathy towards the Chinese Communist Party. And in that realm, we know that efforts strategically to influence are really about limiting the freedom of action by your adversary, by slowing and shaping decisions by your adversary. So what you want to do is to gain an advantage with that. Would you say that China, in their efforts through ByteDance and TikTok, and their other efforts to influence information, to shape that information battle space, do you think that they are having indeed an influence on slowing decisions here, on making things more friendly to their viewpoints here within the American population?
I think the results are varied. Definitely, it's working in the Chinese language space. As Miles mentioned, that the Chinese government or its affiliated entities have bought so many newspapers and news websites that are catered to the Chinese diaspora, and also, WeChat is so widely used within the diaspora, and it's the censorship and the surveillance is quite severe, so it's quite effective within that space. Outside of the Chinese language space, I feel the effectiveness is not that obviously. Because I think that is due to the very vibrant, independent press in the U.S. There have been very good investigative journalism into CCP's disinformation. It's also because the U.S. government has paid a lot of attention. There has been funding from the U.S. government to doing research on this issue. I mean, our Freedom House's project, Beijing Global Media Influence, is funded by the State Department. The fact that we are holding a hearing today discussing this issue is a testament that the disinformation campaign by Beijing is not working as well as it hoped.
But you do point out that their influence is growing, their ability to shape this information battle space, which is part of what they're doing around the world to gain an advantage, is gaining some traction. In that realm, what would your suggestion be for this committee, and for that matter, our nation, to communicate the efforts that the CCP is using to project propaganda, to essentially censor certain pieces of information through platforms like TikTok to be able to direct that, and also not just in keeping information from going out, but actually putting out disinformation, which is even more nefarious than blocking information, as the chairman showed with those graphs. How do we go about explaining to the American people the emergence of this threat, and then what we need to do to counter this threat?
I think number one, really we need a law to force transparency by social media companies. We have all this speculation. There are some evidences about what TikTok is doing in terms of promoting CCP propaganda, censoring information that is critical of CCP. We don't know enough. We don't have the full picture because there isn't laws that are forcing social media companies to disclose that information. We worry about the data being accessed by the Chinese government. We can have laws to prevent that from happening. I think this would be a very effective and powerful law to counter CCP disinformation. And secondly, I really wanted to go back to the Chinese language information space, because this is really, where the Beijing has made, progress there. And being a member of the Chinese diaspora, there's just so much disinformation. There just isn't a good information in this language. I know so many Chinese people, they have circumvented the censorship to read the news outside of the Chinese firewall, but they couldn't get good information just because the whole space is so flooded by CCP's disinformation. So the Congress needs to investigate in the Chinese language space to provide the information that is accurate and fact-based. We have the Voice of America, we have Radio Free Asia, but we need more. We need the kind of information that actually speaks to the concerns of the community, that give information that they want to hear. They need to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.